Hi, my name is Ashley and I will be discussing postmodernism in art. To begin, I have a short video that will help to explain what postmodernism is.
Postmodernism began at precisely 3 p.m, March the 16th, 1972. Modernism had failed, or at least that's what the postmodernists believed. Modernists had spent much of the 20th century trying to forge a better world, inspired by science and universal truths. To them, less was more. To postmodernists, less was a bore. They believed we needed as many references as possible to determine our own individual subjective conclusions. Art is a good way to try and explain it. Remember Picasso? He created one-off masterpieces based upon predetermined principles of art. His creations rocked the art world, but postmodernists weren't impressed. They believed in more than one method or style. Collage, chance, anarchy, repetition. These were infinitely more interesting. Postmodernists wanted to challenge audiences and force them to ask questions. Postmodern buildings rallied against the blandness that had gone before. The Las Vegas Strip is a great example, a riot of styles, cultures and whimsical collage. Like any movement, postmodernism had its critics, objecting to unnecessary ornamentation, an obsessive tendency to recycle the past to make something new, and often just plain silliness. The rise of mass media really helped postmodernism take off. The world was interconnected like never before. For many, postmodernism was liberating, giving creative expression a dynamic, often unsettling voice. Postmodernist cinema still confuses, surprises and delights us. Postmodernist performers still bemuse us. And we just can't seem to get enough of quirky postmodern art. Politically, philosophically, creatively, the postmodern movement has proven itself a force to be reckoned with. Like a giant social cattle prod compelling society to question why things are the way they are. And why they aren't.
Alsem Kiefer was a German artist born in 1945. Kiefer's artwork references are to historical figures, places, literature, architecture, landscape and myths. He is believed to demonstrate major trends within the postmodern culture. The works of Kiefer that portray a mythical and archaeological quality suggest a concern with human history and exploration of human culture. Most of Kiefer's earlier paintings open up on the subject of the German repression of history. The artist is renowned for his use of unusual material and dense texture throughout his collections. His paintings consist of visual power, scale, and use of different material. Some of Kiefer's most famous paintings consisted of the landscape, inclusive of the work Painting Equal Burning, Oil on Burlap 1974. As the name suggests, Kiefer has depicted a link between painting and burning by the placement of the palette above a scorched landscape. This is said to be an echo of the Nazi ideas that destructive devastation was needed to create a better world, but in irony to be explored further may be Kiefer's thoughtful identification with those of a past Germans wish to forget. The artist has linked the artist's palette with fire in numerous of his paintings. This may be the suggestion of his faith in the power of art to renew history. Postmodernism for the artist has allowed him to express his beliefs, thoughts, and challenging history in an expressive contemporary technique. Mary Frank is another artist of the postmodern era who deals in myth. She was born in London in 1933 before moving to America where she began to study art. Frank presents a theme of myth and memory through her paintings and sculptures. It is believed her intention is to capture a state of being. Frank relates to a historical concept being the beauty of canon. It can be seen in her proportion of her sculptures such as Persephone. However, the brokenness of the sculpture relays a sense of vulnerability. Persephone 1985. This is a work of Frank's but also a collection and series of study. Persephone exists in both two and three-dimensional. The sculpture of Persephone has been cut, folded, torn, and moulded into shapes, forms, and structural support. The rest of her techniques show a natural and organic occurrence whilst realizing both negative and positive spatial construction. Persephone is an evocative, rich image which whose face and body language suggest both pleasure and pain. The artist's work displays a high craftsmanship of technique in which her essential ability to transform human figures out of clay is paramount to her appreciation of the medium. Postmodernism allows Frank to express art with an underlying concept and narrative. Her works impact her audience, evoking them to question her work and look further beyond the visual. Andy Warhol was a supreme postmodern artist and influenced American artists of the second half of the 20th century. Warhol was considered an early example of postmodern art in action, with his appropriation of common popular symbols and ready-made cultural artifacts. His career began in the 1950s, however it was not until the 1960s when he shifted his attention to different direction. Seen at the National Gallery of Victoria was Andy Warhol's piece Campbell's Soup Can Shopping Bag, 1966. The image of Campbell's soup can was used in a range of ways throughout Warhol's art. Andy Warhol's Campbell's soup can helped mark the end of modernism and the beginning of a new period of postmodernism. The can of Campbell's tomato soup means nothing by itself, and it forces the viewers to create their own importance for the cans. This is why the suggested artwork is a key painting in postmodern art. It is an example of relatively that can be only understood by interpretation, which obviously differs from person to person. The soup can became an icon of the new style, which used consumers' items of all types to reveal the nature of the postmodern consumer society. Overall, postmodernism has allowed artists to gain a freedom to art and design through different motions. Postmodernism destroyed established ideas about style. It brought a radical freedom to art and design through gestures that were often humorous, hostile, and sometimes quirky.